Hello, everybody. It's Sunday. Hey, welcome, everybody, to the Old Man Ranting from the Kitchen. It is Sunday. Kind of a overcast, cloudy, but warm 68 degrees here at the studio at South Hill. We're excited to be here. We have worked on a completely new format for the show, which we're very excited about, and we're doing right now, in fact. We are doing what's called a simulcast, and we've changed our audio equipment, and we have decided that we can do a podcast live and a simul video, if we needed to, plus Facebook Live, all at once. Yes, and we've been working on it for such a long time. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm the Old Man Ranting from the Kitchen. I'm a podcast publisher. I do a lot of work in the field of podcast marketing, and it's really great to be here with you every Sunday at 2 o'clock. I decide to get rid of that businessman type deal and just sit down and talk about things that are going on in the community that will affect us, or even if something in the nation's going on that will affect us. Now, of course, if I started ranting about what's going on in the nation, there is not enough time available on Facebook, because I'd be ranting from now until I'm 90 years old, I'm sure. But today I want to look at something very important, and that's the Britney Grinder story. And the reason why it's important is kind of a twofold type situation. There's a lot of ifs and ors and buts and things that I think that the media kind of slid by. So I'd like to straighten up a few of these things. And then I want to really complain about something that is very important to me, and that's how women athletes are being treated, why Britney Grinder's in this situation. I always like to say hi to my fans. Hi, Georgia. It's great to have you with us today. I got another exciting thing that we'll talk about, too, before we start on the Grinder show. Great folks at Fat Cat Vinyl Design decided to get me out of their office by simply saying, okay, we'll design a shirt for your show if you'll leave us alone. And I'm telling you what I'm going to do here. I've got it on today. I'm so very excited about this shirt. Let me hold it up. I don't know if you can see all of it, but as I disappear into the sunset, this is our America, what we call campaign shirt for being proud Americans. And as you see, it's an American flag with the Made in America and proud of it. And on the one sleeve, and I'm going to try to get it so it shows, and you'll have to excuse me here because it's a little bit smaller than what you just noticed. But on the one sleeve, in God we trust, and it's the American eagle, and its wings are made out of the American flag. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me, how come, if you did it out of the American flag, why is the top part of the stripes blue and the bottom red? Well, what I wanted to try to do is to come up with a shirt that simplifies but signifies America. The two-party system, the great stars represent the countries that are in America. The red, of course, is dual because it represents one side of our party. Plus, it represents those who have died so that we can wear these shirts, which is kind of important for everybody to realize. The eagle on the side represents home of the brave. And I am very pleased to say that we are now in production. The shirts are going to be available here within the next couple of days. And they come in different colors and different sizes. Where can you get one, you ask? Well, go to www.fatcatvinylcreations.com. That's Google this, www.fatcatvinylcreations.com. And you'll be able to take a look at the website. They got a lot of different vinyl configurations, wall plaques, signs, shirts, etc. This company is a woman's owned and operated company here in Port Orchard, Washington. So we're glad to have them, and they're glad to get me out of their lobby, I'm sure. Okay, well, I want to go back and talk about what is upsetting me over this Britney Grinder situation, or what should be upsetting everybody in the Britney Grinder situation. But to do that, I got to kind of go back at the beginning of the story. A lot of people are asking several questions. Why is this whole thing coming to light to begin with? And why was Britney Grinder in Russia to begin with as an athlete? I don't think a lot of people realize, and I've gathered tons of information online. I mean, pages and pages of information online trying to find the answer to this question and the basics of why the answer to this question is so, shall we say, terrifying to a certain degree. First of all, let's take a look at the WNBA. Now, a lot of people say, what the heck is that? Well, that's the women's basketball. And I personally watch the Seattle Storm. I love it. I think it's great. Sue Bird does a wonderful job. Jewel Lowell and Mercedes and the whole crew are exciting basketball players and athletes. Now, one of the problems that we have, or I should say the athletes have, they have to train just as hard as the men. They have to work just as hard as the men. What's the difference between the WNBA and the NBA? Well, first of all, the W, or women's group, only plays 36 games in a season. The NBA plays over 80 games in a season. The women's team plays 4 quarters at 10 minutes. The American male, the big chauvinist guy who stands there and looks incredibly interesting, plays for approximately 15 minutes per quarter. Now, I'm giving you these facts for one reason and one reason only, to base why Britney Grinder was in Russia, and why not just Britney, or as her wife calls her, BJ, but other stars that are women athletes in basketball that have gone to Russia and played over there. Why? You keep thinking to yourself, why? We all know that Putin loves us. Sure. Absolutely thinks we're great. But when asked, Grinder's wife believes the opportunities to supplement her income was absolutely the reason that she had made the decision in the first place to go to Russia. Now, you're going to say, well, Russia. It can't be that much difference, can it? I mean, do Russians, a lot of them, watch basketball? Well, yes and no. The situation is that over in Russia, most of the Russia sports, naturally, are, shall we say, a bonus gift to those billionaires that are in Russia. One of them is a very lucrative, and I can't even begin to tell his name, but when you play overseas in Russia, you play for the UMMC, and that's the premier Russian league of basketball players. Now, BJ, and I'm going to use her nickname, for Mercury's, reports her salary with the American WNBA for the 21-22 season at approximately $221,450. Now, this is somebody that has dedicated her life for years, has worked very hard to become one of the league's best women basketball players, and will go down in history, if we ever see her again, as one of the best. And she's one of the highest paid, by the way, because listen to this. When you go to a woman's basketball team, the high end is usually $120,000. Okay, that's top end salaries. They might hit $228,000, and if you pick up a couple of endorsements, you might hit $300,000 in a year. Now let's go to the NBA. The same group that plays the same fundamentally basic game has payrolls of anywhere from $1 to $7 million. So you won't see too many Lamar James going to Russia. Plus, endorsements. Don't forget the endorsements. Now, here's the problem of why we have this mess and why women's sports for basketball are having to go over there to make enough money to survive between the seasons. First of all, it helps them because basketball is a universal, worldwide game. So they can sharpen up their skills. They can learn new techniques. They can learn different situations that make them legendary basketball stars. It really does. Sue Bird with the Seattle Storm, who will be retiring this year, She said the reason she went there was simple. She came home a millionaire. That's right. After a few seasons, she ended up very, very wealthy, and still is, by the way. But her top wage over here for 4 championships and doing what Sue has done so brilliantly well is $328,000. And that's over the top of the boundary of what we look at when we look at these wages that I just mentioned for key players. Now, the other problem that we look at is the NBA has pretty well got it wrapped up. It's $1 billion, $9 or $10 billion operation. I'm not exactly sure of the dollar value. The W's, that's the women's basketball situation for the last 4 years, doesn't get the sponsorship, does not get the TV time, does not get a whole bunch of features that the NBA, well, shall we say, like children outside and playing marbles, doesn't want the other guy to have that big marble to shoot. It's the same situation. It's a childish situation as far as I'm concerned. The women play just as hard as the men. Okay, they don't play as many games. Wonderful. But it still does not balance out that women athletes should not be paid on a scale that the men have already set up. It's ridiculous. So after we figure out that the NBA doesn't make a lot of money, the players have to go overseas, what happened to Britney Grinder? Britney Grinder flew in from New York into, and I've got these pages and pages and pages of information, into a airport in Russia, or into Moscow, I should say, from New York, whereas a customs service dog greeted her, as they do with everybody coming off the airplane, and found, allegedly, vape cartridges containing hash oil fluid in her possession. Now, immediately she was taken into custody. According to the statement, she has been charged with smuggling narcotics into the country. The basketball champion faces 5 to 10 years for this offense. Let me back up a little bit. It seems to me that people should realize, athletes or not, should realize that when you go into a foreign country, you got to play by their rules. And if it's no drugs, then it's no drugs. She says in testimony, after 142 days that she's been held by the Russians, she claims in court that she was in such a big hurry to get to the airplane that she didn't realize it, threw everything in a bag, closed the bag, ripped out the door and got in the airplane. Did not realize that material was on her possession. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. But the truth of the situation is that she broke the law. It's simple as that. So we can't come down hard on the Russians for incarcerating her. Very true. But the story goes on. And if it isn't out of a miracle of I don't know what, all of a sudden, great people that we haven't heard from for some time, because they just can't find their 5 minutes in media attention, we take a look at one of the greats of all media, and that is Al-Sharpton, of course. An interview with the Reverend Al-Sharpton on Wednesday, BJ's wife gave an up-to-date on how Britney was doing, almost 4 months now, being arrested in Moscow. BJ is taking accountability, and now it's time, past time, for this comes to a conclusion, Jackson said in her own remarks. He is very concerned about how she's being treated because she's an African American, of course. He was very upset in one of the primetime interviews that he gave on one of the internet stations that she was being moved around between the courthouse and different areas while the trials are going on. And she is being crowded into a vehicle that is hard on her health. I don't know, and do said, I don't know what kind of cars they have in Russia. But the problem is, she did bring cannabis products into the country, and it is considered illegal. But just because she was packing too quickly. What are we going to do about this? Well, of course, America gets really wound up. A lot of people want to get her home. I'm one of them. I would like to see her back home also. But here's the problem that I'm going to see. Number one, Russia does not like us, folks. If you really think Russia likes us, take a look at the Ukrainians and what they're going through, and then think about it. No, they don't. Putin doesn't care for us. He thinks, I'm sure, that our president is an interesting individual who has no backbone and does not carry through. Now, of course, our president has put down a lot of pressure economy-wise to shut the Russians down during the Ukraine war, because the NATO and the rest of these NATO countries feel that what he's doing in the Ukraine is inhuman. And it is. But how does this go to balance out the situation with Britney and getting her home? It's very simple this way. Britney's attorney announced in court, and this was on the 7th, that she's guilty. She's going to take the guilty verdict. Russia has made it very clear when the president has sent information over, tried to get a peace talk and switched trade, because we do have a Russian which we would like to send home, how the Russians have said, no, until the trial is over, we have no reason in the world why we should even talk to you people. As simple as 1, 2, 3. We're Russia. She broke the law. She's in our custody, just as though you have put one of our people in custody, and that's the way it's going to stay. Well, let's look at the backside of what's going to happen next. At least this is all speculation on my part, please. First of all, BJ's wife is now tearing apart the administration for not moving fast enough. Okay? Well, I would imagine if it was my wife or my relative, I would probably feel the same way. But we have to understand that political situations don't move retro fast. A letter was sent to the president. The president has stated that he has read it. The White House released a message that he had read the letter that was written to him. The family is contacted by the president of the United States. He's doing everything that he possibly can do as far as he can tell in this political situation. It's cut and dried. I think that the Russians are angling to get this guy, and I cannot pronounce his first name, and I don't think I really want to pronounce his first name, to be very honest with you. But this gentleman has quite a history, and his history is, it's kind of interesting. In November 11th of 2021, the notorious Russian weapons trafficker Bout was sentenced by the New York court for 25 years for his crimes. It's amazing, isn't it? Now, I got a feeling that Bout, who is, without a doubt, and I'm sure of this, Satan's own manufactured demon, this man has caused more death. He has caused more world vicious, empowered to carry unspeakable activities than Adolf Hitler in some natural, history lessons, which we don't do in school anymore. He orchestrated to kidnap train 1,000 children soldiers, used as rape methods and terror to control them, torture if it needed to be, amputation of their arms, fingers, feet, and other body parts if need be. He slaughtered citizens that got into his way, and he helped the Taliban get us messed up in Afghanistan. Grinder may be carrying the vape cartridges. The world and the Russians want their gunslinger back, I'm sure. This guy is sitting on, by the way, a gold mine and a network of moving arms. Right now, Russia is probably starting to run a little thin on ammunition and arms with the Ukraine war. The war that was only going to last a couple of weeks and still is going strong. I feel that what's going to happen is that, unfortunately, Britney Grinder is going to be used as a political symbol to horse trade one for the other. How soon this is going to happen? I don't think the Russians are going to move quickly at all. Now, the trial is supposed to end sometime in August, they think, and it's supposed to be all over with. Now, I want you to look at the percentage of what happens in Russia when you are in court, being arrested, and are guilty of drugs. 1%. 1% of those people do not see 10 years in jail. And believe me, that ain't no wonderful place to be stuck. It isn't a 4-star hotel. I feel sorry for Britney Grinder. I feel sorry and horrified that we cannot help her. But what can we do? We can pray for her release. We can stand behind her family. We can take the idiocy out of this. I'm tired of hearing and some of these notes, and I'll be honest with you, there's pages of them talking about the fact that her private life comes up in this situation. That is not needed to be said. That's ridiculous. The factor that she's a woman athlete, well, that seems to be, kusha. None of this needed to be brought up. The principle and the problem and the statement that needs to be brought up is simply this. We Americans are proud to be Americans. We do not leave anyone behind. You've heard that in the military. No man will be left behind. I want to start a new saying. No citizen incarcerated illegally, which was what the State Department of this country has said repeatedly to the Russians, should ever be left behind. It's as simple as that. Britney, I know you can't hear us because the Russians won't let internet in. I know that she is totally isolated. They made arrangements to have her call her family. They lied about that. The Russians decided, no, we're not going to do that, even after they had contacted the State Department and set it up. This is a game, folks. This is not a trial. You're not watching Matlock or Perry Mason. This is a political game. Now, how is the Biden administration going to handle it? That's going to be the next point. That's going to be the next crucial point. Will the president and the Republicans and the Democrats and all the other whatever that play in romper room school get together and become leaders and take action to get this resolved? Get Britney Grinder home. She broke the law, there's no doubt. But 142 days punishment with the Russians, and I'm sure it has not been pleasant, should be enough for what she did. Now, those drugs were not illegal in this country. And boy, you don't want to hear me talk about marijuana. Nope. Because this great nation, slowly but surely, is potting themselves right into despair. They're selling themselves short, while others make large bits of A, tax revenue, and B, profits. But we won't discuss that. What she did, mark your words, is wrong. What she is going through is also wrong. So until next week, and I'm probably very excited next week also because we have some other announcements that are coming up. I want to remind you that you can catch our podcast on The Old Man Ranting from the Kitchen and Spotify. We've done over, I think, 20 shows and released some of them now. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. And believe it or not, my brother sits down and says, oh my God, how many platforms is he on just yakking? Well, last count, we're on 12 platforms. We're now being heard around the world. And it's a real pleasure to say that my great viewers on Facebook have helped us with that success. What we need to do now is simply put our foot forward, start conversations, which you hear me say every week. In fact, I believe this is our second year doing this. I've lost track. It's been fun, by the way. We need to start conversations. We need to start moving our communities because election time's coming. Just yesterday, I talked to a gentleman, and if you've heard my podcast, one of our shows we do is called the Power Hour. It is a show to promote American-born Latinos and their role in government and communities and discrimination and what's going on in this country, especially in the state of Washington. It is impressive to me that they're now starting communication. They're starting conversations. They're working very hard to move their vote, their interest, because they're proud of being Americans also. But they want to protect their heritage, and they want to protect this country. You can catch that on the Power Hour Entertainment. That is on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and the list goes on also there. And don't forget our great friend who I'm going to invite next week to be on the show, Dr. Troy Munson, who is Revealing Wholeness, his podcast, and videos are found on YouTube. And we're going to have him on the show. We're going to ask him some questions about vitamins and supplements and how they help or don't help. So please be with us next week. It'll be a good show, I'm sure. I thank you very much for letting me come into your home and, well, just simply have a conversation. Until next week, remember, if we continue to think positive and look into the future, keep loving our hearts for others, and work hard to build this country and unite it, we'll always be proud to be Americans. See you next week.